Wandering in and out.
Oh, there we go. Recording progress. So we might be joined by some dogs as well.
Well, not anymore. I've just closed that door, so
Okay, great.
it should be
Well,
okay.
folks, a very, very warm welcome. This is the first day of the Blethers with the Scriever, which has been delayed by about, what is it, 4 months now? Sorry about that, Barbara. I wasn't terribly well last time round, but here we are, and we shall make a wee start. I'm not sure if everybody here is a member of the Fed, but if you are members of the Fed, very nice to see you. If you're not, I'm just going to pop the Federation of Writers Scotland website into the chat box. So if you're so inclined, you could pop along there and have a wee look. And oh, here's Angie. It's a super organization. It's all volunteer run. It provides loads of opportunities for submissions, writing submissions, and it's just a really nice supportive community of writers of all walks of writing life, songwriters, adult writers, writers for children, poets, academics, you name it. So it's a lovely thing to join, and I'll just pop that down there in the chat. Let's see if that works. So you can have a look. But that's not to direct you away from this conversation, where I'm very, very delighted to welcome Barbara Henderson, who is an astonishingly prolific and fantastic imaginative children's writer here in Scotland. She is a new Scot, an adopted Scot, or to use her own phrase, a Scot by inclination. We may talk about that for a bit, Barbara. And many of her novels for children are historical novels. So they give you a lovely insight into various different periods in Scottish history, which sometimes can get overlooked in Scottish classrooms, unfortunately. So it's a really important contribution to the oeuvre, I think. And yeah, welcome, Barbara. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's brilliant. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to meet you. There are one or two of you whose names I've kind of come across. Gina, I know from my writing group. But yeah, it's lovely to put a face to you. Thank you for coming along tonight. Yeah, it's really great to have this chance. Thank you, Alan, for inviting me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. You were a no-brainer for the first choice, Barbara.
Oh,
I
bless
think
you.
you were one of the first authors I think I met. I met. Did I meet you in Edinburgh at the Kelpies Prize? Have we met in person? I can't remember.
No, actually,
We
no,
haven't.
no. We met kind of face to face online, I think during
That's it.
the lockdowns, when we were both part of this stay-at-home anthology.
That was it.
And I
Yes,
think it
of
was at
course.
that launch that I thought, right, now I can put a face to him. Like I'd seen various photographs and so on. But yeah, no, it's nice to catch up. I don't think we've met in person. Normally my guideline for this is do I know how tall you are? No, I don't.
Ah,
So
right. Well, I'll save that as a surprise for when we do meet in person. Then I'm only 3 foot tall, but
ah
that's fantastic. As out of courtesy, Barbara, I'll mention that you're not 100% today, but you've very gamely joined us anyway. But hopefully, we'll be able to struggle through, and the good companionship of the evening will help you to feel better, and will.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it'll be okay. I just need some distraction. I just feel really queasy all day, so hopefully it'll not end badly. If I rush off, you know. But
We'll
yeah,
know why,
I will
and
aim not to.
we'll forgive you.
Ha.
Well, can we start? Can you introduce yourself to us all, Barbara? For those who don't know, how did you come to start your children's writing career, and what brought you to Scotland in the first place? Can you give us a wee bit of
So, oh, a long
autobiography?
story, but I'll start with, in the good old days when the EU was in operation in these lands, I was able to study and get my whole degree here from Edinburgh University, without any hassle, paperwork, or money. And I came across from Germany to study English literature and language, switched over to Scottish literature quite quickly. I found myself much more fascinated by that. It was a sort of a world and a history that I didn't really know, which I think is a large part of why I'm so drawn to Scottish history, is because this is brand new stuff to me. I came over and it was all coming at me from scratch. I think sometimes when you're studying history in schools, you are confronted with all this, but it's because you need to remember it because it will get you through an exam or, allow you to progress on to whatever the next course is. And, I think that history came to me as a sort of side product of stories and literature. And I found myself really fascinated by that. As you can probably imagine, My university days were very happy ones. I met my husband. We got married pretty much straight after university, and in fact, during university, because we wanted all our uni friends to still be there. And we ended up just settling first for 10 years in Edinburgh, and then for a while in Fife, where I started my teaching career. And then we moved to the Highlands, then Aberdeenshire, London for a little bit, back to Inverness. So it's been one of those itinerant kind of 30 odd years. But I have been in Scotland for 30 odd years, and I have finally kind of resigned myself to the fact that I can call myself a Scot.
Oh,
I've
absolutely,
got the
yes.
citizenship, I've got the badge, and yeah, if somebody says that I'm a Scottish writer, I feel much more Scottish than I do German now, although I have both citizenships. So, but yeah, that's a whole other story about identity, and I cover that in a book called Scottish by Inclination, if you're interested
Mm,
at all in that journey. But yeah, mostly my bread and butter is writing for children. So my plan was what presumably was your plan, Alan.
mm,
Um, I wanted to be a writer, and I didn't think people like me could be writers. I didn't go to a posh school. I didn't, I didn't know anybody in publishing. I had no idea how this worked. And it took me, being a teacher and sort of reading a lot with youngsters and kind of discovering that most writers were ordinary people,
mm,
brilliant people, but ordinary people. And I kind of thought one day I'm going to give this a shot. And I had my own children and I stayed home with them for a few years. And I decided that was the time when I was going to give that a real go. New Year's resolution, decided to try and write a children's book and send it off and win the Kelpies Prize. That was my plan. I never had
of
any other
course.
plan. It was like, write a children's book, win the Kelpies Prize, and be published. That was my kind of roadmap. And then I was shortlisted for the Kelpies Prize with my second book, and I thought, this is it. It's all happening. It's coming together. And then I was the runner-up and not the winner. You know what I mean? And nobody
Mm,
offered me representation or kind of offered to publish me anyway, or all these things that people sometimes wish um, would happen. So I felt like I'd got really close, but not there, and I was back to square one, and that knocked me for a little bit, but not too long,
mm,
because I guess I recognize that I can't be totally terrible if my book rose to the top of that pile, and I should carry on. And it did take another few years, but eventually in 2016, through the Expo North Twitter pitch, I got through the door, and that was Cranachan Publishing. They were brand new.
mm,
They didn't know me from Adam. I didn't know them. They had no track record, neither did I. But I figured there was literally nothing I had to lose, so we gave it a go. And yeah, I did 7 books with them, and I've got five with Louth Press now, I think maybe, and one with the Scottish Mountaineering
and
Press.
counting.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just trying to work out actually. So yeah, it was like Scottish by Inclination. It was the Maid from Girders, Reluctant Rebel, the Mary Queen of Scots book, yeah, and now To War with Wallace, which is out next month. Yeah. So that'll be
Fantastic.
5 with Lewis Press, yeah.
It's startlingly similar to my story, actually, although I've got nowhere near as many books out as you, but it was the same kind of thing with the Kelpies Prize. It's funny, before you actually get published, and some of the people watching or joining us tonight might recognize this, there's a huge kind of mystification, or it seems like it can't, it's almost unachievable. And then you get this kind of, you sort of go up these wee steps of, one or two folks start to hear about you, or you might get a wee story read out here or there, or then, and then this national prize, which I think slightly over promises really, because you go to the Kelpies Prize ceremony, and if you're not the winner, and by the way, the best folk don't win, no disrespect to winners. Common
Don't
knowledge
let
that the
Lindsay
runners up are,
Litterson hear that. She's my pal. But
but
yeah, no, you're right. There's a lot
yeah.
of like ace writers who did not win it, but got somewhere there or thereabouts. Yeah.
Yes, but you do have to kind of get there off your own bat, don't you? It does take there are some folk, I guess, who have maybe are better connected than the likes of you and me, who don't need to maybe shove at the door quite so hard. But there's a certain satisfaction, I think, in having not taken the easy option. Not that winning the Kelpies Prize takes a lot of effort, because you have to write a fantastic book first before it's even gets noticed. But you know, prize winning isn't really it's not the end of the story, is it? It's not the it doesn't really, it's not the making of any author, I don't think. You still have
And
to
it's
work
no
at it.
guarantee that it'll
No
carry on.
guarantee.
You know what I mean? There are a lot of Kelpies Prize winners who, have had their book published because that was part of the prize. I think now it's not even part of the prize. I think now it's like mentoring and the possibility of publishing or something.
Mm,
So, yeah, I think it's yeah, for me, it was something that I'm probably glad in the end how it worked out. I'm glad
mm,
to have started with the publishers that I was with, because they were very faithful to me, and they've done really well. So
fabulous.
those kind of things have been, yeah, I think quite often, even though I was desperately gutted, I'm not going to lie,
Mm,
on the night, you know, in the end, I suppose,
it's for the
I
best.
struck some luck later on, and that's what matters in the end. Because essentially, if you give up, you're giving yourself no chance of ever succeeding. Whereas if you keep going, then there's always a chance. It's like basketball. I
That's right.
tell this to kids a lot of the time. It's like you're trying to score and you miss, and you try and score and you miss and you miss and you miss. But the only way that you guarantee you'll never ever score a basket is because it's walking away,
Not to
or
play,
not
that's
trying
right.
anymore. So, like taking shots at goal, even over your shoulder, even without looking. Do you know what I mean? Who knows? By
Yeah.
fluke, something will stick in the end, and that was my hope, and thankfully, so it's worked out for me.
Well, we're all very glad that it has. It's also it's almost helpful to see that to remind yourselves that even these national prizes with the fantastic publishing houses behind them, they're arbitrary. They are arbitrary, and they're not the final judge of what's going to work or what's going to be successful. And quite often, I went to a panel discussion of agents in Edinburgh a few years ago, and the agents were essentially admitting that it's quite a reactive industry. They're quite often looking for something that is close to the last hit rather than really seeking out original voices because it's a business, of course. And maybe it's nice to remind folk, don't be discouraged if you don't win a national prize. It might not be because you're no good. In fact, it's almost certainly not because you're no good. It might be because you just don't happen to be on the bandwagon that's doing well at that particular moment, and your
Mm.
time may come round again. And of course, the more things you try, and as you say, the more shots you take, the more likely you are to have some success. What was your first published novel? Was it for Luck? Was that
Yeah,
your
it was. Yeah, it was the
mm,
Highland Clearances. I still remember it because it was a tweet pitch, and I've since come off Twitter for
ah,
reasons to do with the American
likewise?
Revolution.
Yep.
Um, but I kind of yeah, I signed up for Twitter purely to take part in that initiative. I had zero followers, I had zero tweets, I have no profile. I literally just tweeted my book ideas out into the world. I think by that point I had written maybe 5 or 6 books. And
Okay.
it was something like Janet, age 12, stands between her village and the eviction writ. Um, cue regiments, riots, and ruin, or something. She chooses to fight, cue regiments, riots, and ruin, or something like that, based on true events. And so this was picked up by Cranachan Publishing, who were interested in books suitable for schools, and obviously also targeted at the wider readership, but they had their particular eye on school markets, because then you're getting possibly 15 or 20 sales, maybe 30 sales,
Mm,
rather than just one or two, from somebody picking up your book in a shop. So yeah, and that was a good fit for me because I am a teacher, so I think like that, and I very much enjoy making little teaching resources for my books and having them ready to download. So it was a good partnership, really,
that's
and
great.
I still
There's
work
a
with
lot
them
of a lot of teachers and ex-teachers in the writing community, aren't there, in Scotland and no
yeah,
doubt further afield as well.
for
Do you
children's
ever?
writing, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, as well as understanding what makes a good class novel. How would you rate that profession as one in terms of gauging your audience, knowing who you're writing for? Was that a particular influence for you?
It does help because you're overhearing them the whole time. You hear what they talk about, you hear what they're obsessed by, and what kind of things stick. So I'm a drama teacher.
Ah,
I came from secondary school English and drama, so I was an English teacher first and foremost, and had drama as my side subject, if you like. Then I moved straight into drama, just because of the way that the jobs opened up. And I was quite glad of it because the marking is the bane of English teaching, as you know.
mm,
And I decided that, I would rather have my head free to do a bit more writing. I then recently, well, last kind of 7, 8 years, I've been working in primary school as a subject specialist for drama, and that has been fabulous because I have literally kissed goodbye all my exams and the huge piles of marking, reporting, parents' evenings, all these things that used to
Mm,
occupy my time and stress me out. So it doesn't mean that it comes without any challenges. We all know that kids can be very challenging indeed, but I love youngsters. I
mm,
particularly enjoy hanging out with the sort of upper primary school age group that I write for. So
mm.
no, it's definitely helpful. And I try out stuff with them all the time. They don't always know it, but I
Yeah.
try things out all the time. And actually, some of the work that I've been doing with them is inspiring, the next and the next idea of books as well. Occasionally, well, I will always tailor my drama teaching to whatever, interdisciplinary topics they're
Hmm.
tackling. And if it's something to do with the Jacobites, then I try and do a deep dive and create the teaching resources to make that fun for them in a drama sort of way. But quite often you stumble across things and you go, actually, this is interesting, this will make a good story. So that can sometimes be the thing that sparks it.
Absolutely. I was going to ask later on, actually, I'll ask you now, how you choose which periods in history you're going to look at, because you've dotted about a fair bit, haven't you? You've
I
gone
have,
from the,
yeah, I
the
know I am
Viking Age with the chessmen thief
faithless. That's
and
me. I am a floozy
yeah.
when it comes to stuff like that. Yeah, bit of Highland clearances, Victorians a couple of times. I've gone into the Middle Ages a couple of times, Mary Queen of Scots,
Mm,
Jacobites, Robert Burns. I think there is that, like, if you're thinking of a Venn diagram, the two circles that overlap, I
mm,
think it's stuff that interests me and then stuff that I know people need in schools. So
mm,
I do probably have a little eye on the market, not with the sense of is it the next big thing? Is it the next kind of exciting thing that all the agents want or whatever? But, do pupils do Mary Queen of Scots in upper primary school? Yes, they do. Is there a
mm.
novel for upper primary school about Mary Queen of Scots? There wasn't until last year. There's a
Right.
sort of cool, funny non-fiction book called Mary Queen of Scots and all that, but there wasn't a novel for that age group. And
Right.
I wanted to write that. And so quite often there is that kind of, what would teachers be interested in? But I feel like that's harder to spot now. There's some really brilliant books out there on lots of different things. But
Mm,
could you turn this, like, for example, there's loads of Victorian stories, but
mhm,
there's not a lot of STEM stuff out there. And so when I looked at Rivet Boy, and I was particularly interested in the Forth Bridge, and
mm,
I've got this long-standing love for the Forth Bridge, the red bridge that spans
yes,
from
indeed.
Edinburgh to Fife.
Yeah.
I first visited as a kid. I've had a lifelong fascination with that thing, and I wanted to write about it. So did I need to write another Victorian novel? No, but when I pitched it to the publishers as this is a Victorian novel, and they went, oh, not again. And I said, well, actually, it's a STEM one. It's about the building of the Forth Bridge and
Mhm.
Victorian entrepreneurship and engineering and all this kind of things and gender stereotypes. And yeah, they were much more interested in that because of all the angles that schools could then tap into. And actually, so it's proved it's by far my most successful title. And that's not by design,
Right.
it's just because it's happened.
That's interesting.
So it's sold to Australia and New Zealand and to Turkey by now, and I'm really delighted. It's not out in any of these territories yet, but Australia is getting close. I think it's October, maybe.
That's
So I can't,
phenomenal.
yeah, I can't quite
Yeah.
believe that.
I'm just going to
So
make a note. Write STEM book next. That's my personal note for myself. That's there. So
it's
that's
just these are the kind of things that,
yeah.
that help, just having that overlap, but then something might stick. You know, kind of occasionally you see something on a visit to a heritage site. Like I'm a complete sucker for that. I love going
Mm,
to castle ruins and so on. And in these displays, there's usually these like interesting little snippets and anecdotes. And the best thing is when you get a tiny little bit, but not a lot, because you have a tiny little bit of knowledge, but all around it, there is room to let your imagination run riot. And that is my
absolutely.
favorite kind of stories. It's like a
Well,
washing line, a few pegs, kind of like, oh, this event, this person was definitely there, and then this happens, and this is how it ends. But
mm,
actually, in between, your fluttering washing can go wherever it likes, and I think there is that movement and that liveliness in it, and that's how my brain works.
Yes, indeed. Well, for I don't know. I hope hopefully the folk who are joining us and the folk who watch this later will have read some of your books. But in case they haven't, I can absolutely vouch for your ability to bring these eras to life. And I'm
Thank
reading.
you.
I'm in the middle of The Boy, the Witch, and the Queen of Scots right now. I've only just got that one, and it's particularly lovely because I didn't know that much about Mary Queen of Scots particularly. Although I did do a voiceover for the Linlithgow Palace tour, so
Oh, well done. That's cool.
I'm a gruff doorman, I think. A trilingual one
Yeah,
because I had to do it in Scots and then Scottish English and then English. So
that's
I had
brilliant.
this kind of sense of place in my head, thinking about where visitors would be coming and going around and seeing. But I've been to the Linlithgow Palace, and as you'll know yourself, it's beautiful, but it's a ruin. It's not been dressed up to look like it's still an inhabited palace, or it wasn't when I was there. And the same with your book about Carlaverock Castle, which is quite near me down in Dumfries and Galloway, which is another
Love
beautiful one, which is
Calabro.
it's an
Gorgeous,
amazing
gorgeous, gorgeous.
place, but
Yeah.
it is a ruin. And you go around, and as you say, your imagination is kind of free to imagine who was here and what kind of lives were led, especially at times of particular national turmoil, like the Wars of Independence, which that book is about, of course.
Yeah, yeah, I loved doing that with Calaverock. Just to say, like the whole thing is sort of inspired by this heraldic poem, which was actually written from an English perspective, and
Ah,
much flattery of the English king and his mercifulness and all this, which I'm not totally sure is always accurate.
possibly
Um,
not.
Yes, but it was such a that those were the pegs, you know what I mean? Like the poem told me who was there, which knights were there, and what sort of, like capers they got up to try and get
Mhm.
into this castle and to cut it off from supplies. And yeah, it was just really fascinating. So it's usually a combination, but that was absolutely inspired by a completely unplanned visit. I had no intention. I was down in the area to finish writing Blackwater and get a feel for the area and take some photographs that I could then use in school events. And so that was the reason why we were there. I had like manipulated shamelessly my family into going on holiday there. It was the muddiest, wettest spring on record ever.
Mhm.
We waded through mud for the whole time really that we were there. And really on the last day we decided like we're gonna have to do something that's nothing to do with mum's writing. Let's just go and visit a castle, have fun. And the
Mhm.
second I arrived, there was this welcoming kind of display of these massive solid stone kind of missiles that had been
Mhm.
hurled at the castle during the siege. And I was like, what's this all about? So I read the first display board and that's it. I'm in a new story. I was like, right, that's going to be next then. Let's pick up the little leaflet and order the heraldic poem and try and make sense of that. And yeah, so sometimes these things catch you unawares.
Phenomenal. You mentioned Blackwater. I thought it was the first of yours I read, I think, and I read it to a class because it was January, and obviously we're always talking about Robert Burns in
Burns, yeah.
primary and secondary classrooms in January. Are Burns wall to wall Burns, but it was such a lovely, unusual take to have him as he's quite a peripheral character in that book, but it paints the kind of social landscape that he was a part of at the time, which was a added color to the notion of the man. And especially in primary classrooms, I think when you're talking about Robert Burns, an awful lot of his poetry, I might argue all of his poetry, isn't really aimed at a primary school audience, and can be a little bit alienating because a lot of the vocabulary is unfamiliar. But his story is a grand romance, and getting to know him as a character and getting to know the historical context of his writing is really, really good. And that was a lovely addition to that month's teaching, I have to say. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh no, that's fun. I actually didn't come at it from a Burns angle at all. I came at it from a smuggling angle. I wanted to write a smuggling book. I don't know if you know, but there used to be this like smugglers festival at Ballantrae. And Ballantrae, is that how you say it?
Ballantrae?
Yeah.
Yes, I yeah.
So they used to have a smuggling festival and they had a writing competition once and I sent in a little short story for that from the perspective of a 13-year-old excise boy, training to be in the excise and it won it and it was probably the last competition that I did okay in before publication actually happened and I got this little certificate and that was all 25 quid, wasn't a big win or anything,
That's
didn't
something.
did
Yeah.
not pay the mortgage
Mm.
but it was yeah and but actually the judge had said that it felt like it could be the part of something longer, like a bigger story. And so I resolved really to write a smuggling book using that as my first chapter. And it was only in the research that I came across the story of the Rosamond and Burns. And then it was a no-brainer that that was going to be the context. So yeah. Um,
Fantastic.
yeah, it
I
just
wanted
shows you never what you set out. It
you've
always
kind of
ends up being something different.
you've touched on what sort of plants the seed of some of your ideas, but I'm interested to know what is your kind of research strategy. I mean, you've obviously come from an academic background and studying history as well. How deep a dive do you like to go on before you start painting the picture for your novels?
So I've got to be honest, like I am a broad brushstrokes kind of girl. I'm not really a pernickety, meticulous person. So I do as much as I feel like I need to. And my secret weapon is the expert. Like there is always some kind of, and I mean nerd in the nicest
Mm,
possible way. There's always somebody who just, lives and breathes this kind of stuff, and has already bored their whole family and circle of friends to death with this. And then, along comes the writer and says, tell me about the thing that you really love talking about. And they love helping you. So
mm,
it's been great actually I think for all of the books I've had somebody like that in my corner, and it's just been such a joy to do that. So for clarity, I didn't study history, I studied literature, but I
sorry.
found that I was absolutely immersing myself in the historical context of all these texts because it was new to me. So I read
Right.
around all this, and you can't make sense of, you know, Scottish historical plays. You can't make sense of Henryson without knowing the context. You can't
Sure.
you can't make sense of Burns without understanding. You can't make sense of the type of poetry that's being thrown at you in these courses without having some kind of idea about the historical context. And because all of that was new to me, I hadn't been taught any of that stuff in school. I just soaked that up like a sponge. And actually, in retrospect, I think I would have loved studying history. I had the world's worst history teacher. So
Right.
I just had it in my head that it was just going to be boring and awful. And
I do.
yeah, but
Yeah.
turns out,
I
not
worry
so.
as a teacher or as an ex-teacher now that the academicization, if that's a real word, of any subject can kill its stone dead for a lot of folk. So going into it through the literature is such a lovely way to access those
Yeah,
periods and
it totally, it wasn't even that, like, I don't think academic rigor would have necessarily put me off, but it was the teaching methods. Like, he literally t didn't speak to us for the whole lesson. He
mm,
turned round to the blackboard in those days with that squeaky piece of chalk that we all love to hate, and he just wrote very small and almost illegible writing, lots of details. We were supposed to copy them, and that was the end of that. Um,
right.
so,
What fun.
or he would turn around and say, read pages 37 to 45. There was no discussion, he was just not in the right job, I think. Um,
Right.
so, in retrospect, I wish I'd pushed on with that a bit more. I think I would have loved it. My husband, who's a medic, recently did a history degree through Open University just out
Ah,
of
fantastic.
interest. So I've had lots of secondhand stuff like that.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, no, occasionally I will go to an archive, but I am probably not your researcher first. I know as much as I need to know. I read a lot of books. I will normally read, I don't know, 12, 15 books for each book that I write. Like everything I can get my hands on. And it soon becomes relevant. You can tell quickly what's relevant and what isn't relevant. So normally I try and get the broad kind of structure in my head if it's historical. I read a lot of literature that is set in those times to try and build up a feeling for what the times were like. But see, the thing with children's fiction is that a sprinkling is enough. You don't need
Yes.
to immerse, you don't need to write in Old Scots. They would not buy it. You don't
No.
need to give them every single detail of the food, every spice in there. Give them one or two things so that they've got something to latch onto. A sprinkling's enough. It needs
Absolutely.
to remain accessible for youngsters. So if
I
that
think
makes
you're
sense.
absolutely right, and something that you are particularly great at, from by my point of view, is the tone of your novels. Although they often take place in times of terrible conflict and wars, they're characterized, for me anyway, by kindness and generous interactions between people, and loyalty and strong friendships and strong family bonds and things like that. And I think there's a kind of a stereotype of children's writing that it has to be kind of very basic and sort of toilet humor and silly all the time. And there is definitely a place for all that, of course. And I'm a big fan of silliness from time to time, but it's I find it very patronizing to young readers to think that they won't be able to handle something with a bit more depth and a bit more substance to it. So I think that's a fantastic contribution, which is consistent whatever time period you be writing about. You know, the humanity in your work is something that shines through for me, which I really enjoy.
Oh, thank you. That's great. I mean, very much that is the hope. But it's largely born out of the fact that guttingly, I am not funny. I'm really not funny. I tried. I have tried to write humorous stories from time to time. It just doesn't land. You know, maybe there's something
Right.
in that stereotype of Germans. You know what I mean? That they don't have a sense of humor. I just, I don't know. I've given it a go a few times, but they are not the ones that fly. And I still just for what it's worth, I tell every single school class I visit this. I got 121 rejections before I was ever published, and
Wow.
I still get rejections mostly for the stuff that I would deem funny or lighthearted that actually isn't. So I still have books knocked back and not taken on. It's not like once you're through the door, that's it. You know what I mean? And
Sure, absolutely. I've
yeah,
got
and
friends who've published even more than you, Barbara, who are established, properly established writers and still get these rejections. It's a nebulous industry, I think, or it's hard to know what folk are looking for at any given time, I suppose. And that notion, because I was like you, I think that the idea of getting a book published, that was the goal for such a
yeah.
long time. I mean, for decades. If I could just see my work in print, that everything else will be fine. And it is a wonderful thing. There's no question. And it certainly feels as if you've kind of crossed a threshold, but it doesn't open any other doors particularly. It doesn't grease the wheels all that much. It gives you, I suppose, it gives you a sense of vindication
Yeah,
which
it's
can
it's
help you.
no it's no guarantee though. And
No.
actually I am acutely aware of people who I think work harder than I did and are probably better than I was and who haven't got through the door yet. And
Right.
I just hope with everything I've got that it will happen for them too.
Mm.
And there is that sort of little idealist in me that thinks if you just keep pushing, surely, do you know what I mean? Something will stick. It's that whole idea of even if you throw a basketball over your shoulder, surely, if you do it
Yes.
enough times, it may just land and go in. You know what I mean?
You would hope so. You'd hope so. I always hope that folks' main motivation for writing or for any artistic endeavor isn't really the release or the publication. But I know realistically, of course, we're only human. It's nice to get some kind
Mm.
of recognition. But I always hope folk do it for the joy of the process, because then
Mhm.
at least your time hasn't been in any way wasted, even if it doesn't,
Yeah.
become a bestseller or anything like that. Barbara, you've done. I've been asking lots of questions, but it would be lovely to hear a wee bit of one of your books, if you don't mind. You
Yeah,
suggested maybe reading a wee bit from I Don't Do Mountains.
I
Can
think
you?
I will actually. So we've
Yes.
talked so much about the historical stuff, and the
Mm.
latest book I've got out is sorry, it's the wrong way round for you, isn't it? It's called I
No,
Don't
it looks
Do
fine. Yeah.
Mountains.
Yeah.
um, which is published by the Scottish Mountaineering Press. So in 3 weeks' time, there's going to be another one called To War with Wallace, which is another Wars of Independence ones. But I'm really excited about that one because I feel that there's not a lot about that period. And
Mm.
thankfully, schools have picked up the Siege of Calavera, and my hope is that they may also pick up To War with Wallace. Um, I had a huge sense of indignation when I found out that Wallace's great triumph at Stirling Bridge was co-commanded by somebody else.
Oh
So,
yes, the Murray.
Andrew de Moray or Andrew
Yeah.
Murray
Mm.
co-commanded that battle. And, where's his national monument? He's from my neck of the woods. He's in the Highlands.
Yeah.
How dare they write him out of Braveheart altogether and make it look like it's just the one person doing all this. So anyway, that's why I wanted to go for To War with Wallace. And yeah, that's my next historical one. This one here is a contemporary story about an outdoor expedition. You can kind of see the beautiful cover
Mm.
by a lady called Tori Holt. So it's about a mountain expedition gone wrong. So I might actually read you the blurb first.
Okay.
Adventures are good things for people in books, but I'm not a person in a book. I'm Kenzie. I like to read about adventures, not actually have them. Bookworm Kenzie can't believe her bad luck when her teacher announces plans for a 3-day hill walking expedition into the Cairngorms. She tries everything to get out of the trip, but soon the group heads to the hills with mountain leader Bairdi and set up camp for the night. Bairdi's stories of ancient magic fill Kenzie's mind, but in the cold light of morning, they discover that he has vanished, his tent left untouched. They are alone. So I just really enjoyed playing around with, my love for the outdoors and the mountain landscape that I'm lucky enough to live very near, but also, maybe the chance to raise some issues along the lines of rewilding and land use and who owns land and
Mm,
whether that is the right thing for so much land in Scotland to be owned by so few people and what they do with that land, how they manage it. There's a bit of raptor persecution in there because that's, I used
mm.
to be a volunteer for the RSPB. I really love raptors and,
That comes
it's
across
about
in the Mary Queen of Scots book too, because your
yeah, oh
protagonist
man,
that's
yeah.
is a
I
hawker,
know
isn't
actually
he? Yeah,
birds
yeah.
are a bit of a recurring theme. I
Mm,
decided this time round to have a little break from the birds with To War with Wallace, but yeah, it very much comes into it and the natural world all around it. Anyway, here's chapter one
perfect.
of that. We're in a P7 classroom. Chapter one, the announcement. What on earth? She must be joking, right? I don't even know these people. Picture the scene. Miss Cuthbertson wanders into the classroom as if Christmas had come early, very early as it's only April. She looks around the room with her, "This is so exciting, isn't it?" face. My stomach sinks and my heart clenches in my chest, and then she lobs her missile. Listen, as part of our transition to secondary school, we've come up with a really, really exciting project. There will be an outdoor-bound residential trip, just as we announced before. Haha, but there's a twist. By now, her smile is almost deranged. For your expedition, you will be teamed up with pupils from other schools. How wonderful! It'll give you the chance to bond with young people from all around the city before you meet them at the academy in August. Friendships, blah, resilience, blah, nature, blah, overcoming challenges together, blah, blah, blah. I only take in small snippets of what follows. The cuff drones on, but I don't think anyone's listening anymore. With a little relief, I notice I'm not the only one looking around the room in distress. Practically all the blood has drained from our collective faces. Even Sorley looks a little less big-headed than he normally does. Come to think of it, if there happens to be a silver lining to this mother of all calamitous clouds, it's that I'll be able to avoid that boy for a few days. But this is a dire disaster. There's no other expression for it. Or maybe there is. Catastrophe? Utter ruin? What are you talking about, Kenzie? A voice beside me hisses. Oh no, I did it again. I said it aloud. You and your big words all the time think you're so clever, don't you? I do not have a big word answer to that, so I don't bother. Claudia and her posse can think what they like. Thankfully, the cuff hasn't noticed. How could she, when she's in full flow about the transformative magic of mountain air or whatever else she's going on about now? And we'll be announcing the groups after lunch, she finishes. A forest of hands shoots up as soon as she stops to breathe, but she waves us away impatiently, much like Granny shoos away flies. No more time for questions now. The bell is about to ring, and you'll find out soon enough. But don't worry, most of you will have at least one person from our class in your expedition group, so there will be a familiar She is drowned out by the lunch bell. If she wanted to dismiss us table by table in an orderly manner, she can think again. We flee in a stampede of uproar past the unfortunate younger pupils who push themselves into the coat racks at the side of the corridor for safety. In the lunch hall, I wolf down my sandwich, shuddering whenever I hear the others mention mountains, expeditions, or the names of the other schools. I don't join in. They wouldn't listen anyway. Truth is, I find it hard enough to endure the people in my own class, never mind people I don't actually know. As for the thought of hiking up hills with complete strangers, well, you might as well ask me to tap dance across a tightrope across Niagara Falls. Let's be clear. Number one, I don't do mountains. Number two, I don't do strangers. Number three, let's face it, I barely do friends. After lunch, I find myself back in my seat without much of an idea of how I got there. I just want this to be over. The cuff has other ideas, though, taking us out for a bracing jog 3 times around the school building. I can see right through her. She's not going to announce the groups until the very end of the school day so that no one will have a chance to complain. Teachers will do anything for an easy life. With every step, I slam my trainers down hard on the ground at the injustice of it all. Running, I can handle. Running is safe. Climbing mountains? I have a sneaking feeling. Maybe less so. Behind me, most of the class puff loudly while Sorley is almost out of sight. Ahead of us all, of course he is. I must have set the record for fastest PE changeover in my life as I sprint into the classroom and throw myself onto my seat. I've no idea why I'm so desperate to know. The names won't mean anything to me anyway. You're keen, Kenzie, the teacher says. To say I'm not up for banter is an understatement. I don't laugh along. Everyone here? Good. Listen now here. She waits until all of us are seated and brandishes a densely printed blue paper. This is the letter to take home to your parents. It gives the details of transport arrangements, expedition schedule, expedition leader, and the names of the others in your group. On the reverse is a kit list. Don't lose it. And I'll see you bright and early on Monday. Her timing is better this time. The bell rings just as she finishes her sentence, and she looks smug as a slug to have nailed it like that. She fans letters out on the table beside the door for us to pick up. I have to wait an agonizing 30 seconds or so before it's my turn. And then I wish I'd never looked. In fact, I wish I'd never been born. I don't do mountains or strangers. I barely do friends, but I absolutely, categorically, emphatically do not do Sorley Mackay.
Fantastic.
So,
Wonderful.
little
That's great.
abridged first chapter, but there you have it. That's the vibe of that.
That's super. Folks, just before we continue our conversation, can I mention we'll hopefully have the last 5 to 10 minutes for some questions. So if you've got anything you would like to ask Barbara, please feel free to type something into the comments box and I'll be able to read it to her when the conversation goes that way. But Barbara, that was really lovely. How was it writing in a more contemporary voice? Was it,
No,
could you
it was
drop?
really enjoyable, actually.
Yeah.
It threw me right back to when I wrote Wilderness Wars, which is, my other sort of eco thriller.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it just felt like such a lovely thing where I didn't have to research that much. I knew quite a lot about the landscape that I was describing. I had a bit of an inkling of what a classroom looks like. I work in one. So, yeah, it felt like a little bit of a breather. And actually it was a little, it was a commission in the end through the Scottish Mountaineering Press. I didn't pitch them this book.
Ah,
We just happened to be at a dinner together. We didn't speak to each other. Actually, the guy from the press didn't talk to me that whole night, and I didn't get a chance to speak to him either. We were all there to impress these international publishing people who couldn't have been less interested in my work if they tried. It was a bit of a waste of time, but it was a lovely dinner that I got, and I just thought put it down to experience. I've done my reading, and I left a copy of Wilderness Wars, so it turns out he picked that up when the internationals didn't, and yeah, he got in touch afterwards saying, "Would you be interested in writing a book for the Scottish Mountaineering Press?" And I laughed in his face because I'm not a mountaineer. I am, at best, a very terrible trekker. I
right.
just think it's you know, but I said to him, like, why would you want somebody like, I really, really am not that person. I know lots of really outdoorsy writers who are more sort of hardcore than I am. Um, so he said, "Oh, we just want somebody to basically turn one of our big, massive non-fiction books, reference books, into a version for children." And I said,
Mm,
"I am not that person. I write stories. I'm not a non-fiction person for children.
mm,
And I'm not so interested in translating something that's already been done."
sure.
But I can suggest lots of people who might well be interested in this. And so I got back to him, and I basically signed off with, "Thanks very much for considering me. If you ever want a story set in the mountains, then get back in touch." And he got in touch that afternoon and said, "What do you mean
Fantastic.
story?" So I said, "Right, give me a day." And I sat down and I wrote exactly what I read to you in one evening and pinged it off to him as a sort of, like plus minus 2, 3 words.
Sure.
And yeah, he said, "Gosh, where could this story go?" And we met for coffee and I told him what I was envisaging, and he threw in a few ideas, and next thing you know, I get a book deal. So that was lovely.
Superb. That's fantastic. Well, we're kind of into the home straight here, I think, and you've managed to survive it. Well done. One
Actually,
last
I
wee
feel
thing.
better.
Oh, good.
You were
That's great.
right.
That's good. That one last wee thing that I think might be interesting for folk who are watching this is something that you are particularly dedicated to, or I seem very visible with, is the post-production period. So we all know that the getting the book published is obviously a big part of the goal, but it's far from the end of the story. And especially if you're with an independent publisher who maybe hasn't got a huge budget and can't pay Waterstones to put your book in the window and that kind of thing, there's a lot of footwork, isn't there, and a lot of kind of networking and things like that. How do you feel about that part of the process? Do you dread it, or do you relish it, or are you somewhere in between? And have you got any
Somewhere
good
in
tricks of the
between.
trade? Mm,
It's kind of, I feel like it's an absolutely necessary part of it because yes, you write for yourself and for the joy of it and all those things, but in the end, I felt when I was given that opportunity, when one publisher said that they were going to publish my first book, I felt like this is my chance. Like if the whole thing goes belly up, I don't want it to be my fault. I don't
mm,
want it because I didn't try. So I signed up for every possible social media. I kind of tried to write lots of press releases and I tried to think of unusual ways of maybe connecting. And now I've sort of arrived, I think, at a system where I'm reaching out now to potential partners for a book that's going to come out like much later next year.
mm.
I've got a little Shakespeare story in the offing and
Yeah,
departure from Scotland. My goodness, could it be possible?
yeah,
But I was just really hooked by this idea that Shakespeare had a little brother, 12 years his junior. Who knew
yeah.
that? Who
Right.
knew
I didn't know
that?
that.
I know, right? And
Goodness
this
me.
little Sprog would have been about 12 when Shakespeare started like finding, success in London. And it turns out that that little kid went on to become an actor in London. He died young. Shakespeare paid for his funeral, and that's all we know about the guy. Literally,
Oh
that's
wow.
all we know. And I just thought, right, Shakespeare's little brother, that would be brilliant. Pesky little brother follows him to London. So I'm now sort of building these contracts with, I've got the deadline for that book in August, but it's written. I think it's pretty much sorted to go, I think. And yeah, cover's being designed. It's all happening. But
Mhm.
I'm reaching out now to all the potential partners because I just know you can't shake that out of a sleeve just at the time when you need it. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. Well, that sounds like a fantastic story, a blank canvas, and I can speak from experience that being a younger brother to a talented person is extremely annoying. And my older brother is
Is
on
he
the
here?
call.
Is
I
that
see he
him?
is.
Ewan McClure, you have been
That's him,
spotted.
yes. But well, I look forward to that one, and that's the thing. So even a year in advance, you're reaching out and talking,
You
thinking
have
of
to. You
options,
have
and
to
yeah,
really think about it. And occasionally like a little thought will come to you going, "Oh, I could maybe try and I don't know, get on the radio with this or see if I can get some coverage." So To War with Wallace is out on the anniversary of William Wallace's death. So the
mm,
23rd of August is that date. And I thought, actually, there's a topical hook here, so I pitched an article to the National, which I think will be running this weekend, about Andrew de Marais and the forgotten guy beside
mm,
Wallace and so on. And the article isn't about the book, but hopefully will direct people to it. And I think that's the way that you get a bit of coverage without having money, which is my
yes,
problem with this. So
and a lot of people's problem. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then I kind of thought, oh, can I reach out to the William Wallace Society? Could we partner up? Actually, wouldn't it be cool to have a book launch at the Wallace Monument? That would be great. So I kind of, visited and pitched it to them and, followed up with email and sent them a digital copy and so on. And now that will actually happen, which is really cool. So it's kind of like you just have to have a go. You just have to have a go. I also pitched it to the afternoon show on Radio Scotland. The
Hmm.
producers haven't got back to me at all. So I just thought I'd have a go at messaging Nicola Mean on social media and see what she says. And it may well not happen, but I think the what am I losing by giving that a go? Um,
Absolutely.
and I think it's just one of the best bits of advice that I got really early on was don't worry about being pretty or coming across as confident. Just be out there, be
Hmm.
visible and be
Yeah.
accessible and be nice. Be visible, be accessible, be nice. Those were my three kind of bits of advice that I was given by an older writer who shall remain anonymous, but it was actually really helpful.
That's good
You know,
advice. Yes,
don't worry about, looking amazing or, feeling ready or feeling like you're
sure.
totally on top of it. Be out there, be visible, and be nice. And
And be
that's
nice. Be
kind of
nice is
the
always good advice, really, isn't it?
it's the yeah, I know. It's I try hard. It is difficult, Alan.
You get the sense that in Scotland, it's a nice thing about the last wee thing I want to ask you about is kilts, actually. But your kid lives in Scotland, but Scotland is a smaller, obviously a smaller market, if you want to think of it that way, than south of the border. And maybe some of those kind of media outlets are a little bit more accessible. You can just kind of get in touch with the Radio Scotland, and you can get in touch with the Herald and things like that. And it's not it's not long before you start to meet folk whose names you recognize
Yeah.
from the paper and from other books. And I mean, very soon after my experience with the Kelpies Prize, I felt like I knew some of the best writers in Scotland. Children's writers, and of course, children's writers often have contacts in the broader literary world. And networking is one of the joys of the profession. It seems to me, even when you're not feeling like you're getting any support from the business side of the kind of industry, support from your fellow authors, especially at the indie level,
Oh,
is
totally.
magnificent, isn't
Yeah,
it?
and what I think is really helpful is not to think of anything as a rivalry, because
Mm,
the truth is, like, whatever story you're writing, I am not excited about writing that story. I'm
mm,
excited about the story that's in my head. You will not be
sure.
excited about that.
Mm,
So it's best not to stress about, whether we're competing for the same publication slots or, to the same publishers. I think the more you can champion others, the more they will champion you. I'll tell you a little secret. I put a wee Facebook post out about some fringe shows that I'm doing
mm.
through my publishers, and Alan, bless him, right there, shared them to his Facebook, which
Well, of
I thought
course.
was really kind and lovely. And I hope that I can be that person for other people who will say nice things about their work or give them a little break or spread the word a little bit. And I think the more you can do that, the more it breeds this reciprocity. Is that what's
Mm.
the word? Somebody say
Yeah,
that word.
reciprocity. Yes, yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, it just
yeah.
wasn't coming. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like basically, that's the best way. Sorry, somebody's just put a comment in.
Oh, nice.
Oh, bless you. It's not even a question. Thank you,
Colette,
Colette.
a really inspiring talk. It really has been, Barbara.
Oh,
It's fantastic. Yeah, I think that reciprocity. It's the Scots phrase is "heasing each other up." It's nice to
yeah.
hease each other up,
Uh-huh.
isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's particularly good for your mental health. Even it's not a selfish thing to do. It's not like, oh, I'll do this in the hopes that somebody will be nice back to me. It's just, as you say, it's good to be nice and remembering that these other folk, the other writers, it's not competitive. There's not really a top spot that that everyone's aiming for. We're all just trying to get our wee bit out there, isn't it? Aren't we? And any help that we can give each other is really, really
Absolutely.
welcome and
Yeah, and
thoughtful.
actually, just as a side comment to that, I think particularly with social media, if all you post is buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, people are turned off by that.
Mm, yeah.
Whereas if you go, oh, look at this, what a brilliant book this is, or I'm reading this right now, I'm having so much fun reading this, or so and so's got a new book out, I can't wait to read it, and if you sort of like, encourage the buzz around other people's work, it actually shows like I think it actually works in your favor online as well.
Yes,
So,
indeed. Yeah.
not that
It's a
that
very
yeah.
frustrating environment for social media, I think, because it's kind of sold as this is your platform to the world, but we all know that it's no such thing. Actually, the algorithm dictates whether anything you share is going to be seen. And as you say, as you get increasingly desperate, I think I've just about managed to avoid this. But as you're getting, please, why has nobody reviewed my book? Why is it not? It's not a good look for any artist or
No.
anybody really. So
I
yeah, the
think
things
people
that we.
love to see that you're human. So
Mm,
actually like for these fringe events, right, would you believe this? But nobody thought to check and they have scheduled my two fringe events for the same day, which is the day that all the Edinburgh schools go back. The first day. No one's going to skive the first day. So,
right.
really like there are some private schools, I suppose, who go back later, but we're going to be up against it. It was a complete mess up. Like, what were we even thinking?
Right.
So the publishers didn't think to check, I didn't think to check, and lo and behold, there it is. And actually, I made a thing of that online. Like, what Muppets are we? Like look at
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah.
How idiotic not to check that. And it's true. It's just so bad.
Maybe somebody out there is getting a nice little Schadenfreude. Aha, she's not
Yeah.
infallible after all. Yes.
Probably, I know, but I just think like the more people can see that you're human, and yeah, then I like to see that in other people. And I mean that's the litmus test, isn't it? It's like
Absolutely.
what do I like reading about when other people post it? What kind of gets me? What do I find interesting? What do I not find annoying?
Mm,
How can other people promote themselves that I do not find annoying or grating? Do that. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think if in the absence of any questions, I'll throw it open one more time, folks. You can put your hand up in the chat. I'll be able to see, and I can unmute you, and you can just ask the question if you don't really fancy having to type it.
yeah, you
Is
don't
there
need to
anybody out
type
there?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Gina's
But
got a question.
Yeah.
Gina, let's
I've
have
always
Gina.
got questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Gina. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know, you mentioned earlier on, Barbara, that you hear how the children, what they're interested in and what they're really talking about. And I'm interested in if you feel that that's changed since the pandemic, and if so, in what way?
Um, I don't think that, the core things that kids are concerned about have changed. I don't think so. I don't actually even think that the core things that kids are most concerned about have changed that much since I was a kid. I think it's
Mm,
that sort of universality of friends and family and making your way in the world and being seen, being listened to, being accepted. All those kind of universal themes, which is, why I think I love writing history because I love just showing that that's exactly what life was like for these guys. They were trying to find their way in the world, trying to, you know, sort of, see what they could do about their dreams and their hopes and so on, and how they deal with incredibly challenging circumstances. So I'm not sure that the universal themes and concerns have changed. I think kids have changed a little
mm,
bit. I think certainly habits and activities have changed enormously. Reading has a tough gig at the minute with kids. Um particularly um, the type of books that I write, which are not heavily illustrated and not hugely humorous. And yeah, so, comics are having a big moment, anime is having a big moment. So yeah, I think in that sense, it can be tougher to get through. But I suppose what hope I freed myself from is this idea of having to appeal to every kid. I don't have to appeal to every kid. Occasionally you get a little letter from a parent or you get an email or somebody comments on a social media post, somebody you don't know who just says, like, my kid absolutely loves your books, please come and visit their school or whatever. And that's so, so nice to see. So I don't need to appeal to everybody. And I try not to even think about the sort of wide general public and your average child, because as soon as you think about the average child, you're on a hiding to nothing. You're going to be everything and nothing. So yeah, best to think about the kids who are going to tap into this. And I don't know, you guys probably don't know what Gina writes, but she kind of is fascinated by nature and intercultural interaction. And I think those things are timeless and particularly topical in Scotland. You've got a sort of Eastern European character and a British character at odds with each other, and I think all of that is timeless. So
mm.
then
I
it's
th I
about
think.
how.
Sorry, I wonder whether one thing that might I felt that I had noticed changing in this last cohort of students that came round, and maybe the last couple, in fact, is a slight disconnection from place. When we
Mm,
were younger, we knew the neighborhood like the back of our hands. The every
mm.
nook and cranny and every climbable tree and every rooftop that you could sneak up on and things like that. And the kids I was teaching before don't have that. They're kind of disconnected in geography because they spend a lot of time in a kind of non-specific geography of the internet, and so they don't necessarily know if you're doing a topic on animals and you ask what their favorite Scottish animal is, and they're saying, "Oh, tigers," and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
there's that kind of thing. And in that sense, I think you really contribute a great deal, Barbara, with the historical thing, because that very specifically grounds you in your country's story if you're a Scottish child. And if you're reading that elsewhere, then maybe you might think, oh, there's interesting stuff happening over in Scotland. Maybe I'll see if there's something from wherever
Yeah.
I'm from and look at
It's a
that.
window in, yeah, it's a
Yes.
window in, isn't it? And I love actually how the past is like this foreign country, but it's right
Mm.
beneath your feet. So
Yes,
there
yes,
are
yes.
bits of it that you recognize and that are very familiar, and there are bits of it that are utterly alien. And but there is a sort of identity that travels, and I think that's a lovely thing. So yeah, sorry, somebody's
Yes.
just chucked something over in our neighbour's garden. I hope you
All
didn't
right,
hear that too
we're
loudly.
very nearly out of time. We've got one last question from Barbara, who asks, why do you write and what do you love about writing or hate about writing? Shall we finish on
Okay,
that one?
so
That seems like a good one to land.
Carol, why do I write what you do? All right. Why do I write? So I write to get the stories out, but one of my friends before I started writing said, "You're a bit of a raconteur, aren't you?" And I had to look at the word up. I wasn't totally sure what you meant. But yeah, so I like telling stories, and before I wrote plays. I did lots and lots of playwriting. I was a puppeteer for a few years, so that was theatre in miniature. It allowed me to, write, produce, create the scenery, create the puppets, and travel with that, and see lots of really cool places and meet lots of interesting people, and that was wonderful. So yeah, I have a huge love of puppetry. So I think I discovered during those years that I did that the writing was what I loved the most, and I really really enjoyed that. And then I suppose as you read, you start thinking like, could I do this? Maybe I could certainly give it a go. And in the end, I felt like I would be very disappointed in myself if I didn't try. What do I love about it? I love that moment when something clicks, when you sort of see something and you just know that's what you're going to write about. So I'm like a chapter and a half into a brand new thing. So I need to clear these two deadlines for the next two books, and then I am giving myself over to that one. And I am so excited about it. Like I can't stop thinking about it even now. And I have other books that I need to finish and tweak and edit and stuff before that, but I need to not let go of that enthusiasm. I need to sort of nurture it like you keep a flame alive.
Mm.
It can't die because it's too good an idea. So
Yeah.
I need to carry on with that. So that's the bit I really love. And then actually the other end of it, when you first take it into like, schools or to festivals, and you see kids really connecting with it. That actually really happened with I Don't Do Mountains, because
Mm.
it's contemporary. There's nothing in the way. They don't need to overcome some kind of huge time lapse or whatever, like with the history. There aren't unfamiliar words. These are their words. This is the kind of language that they would hear and use. So yeah, there was just an instant kind of like, my goodness, that could be me, and that was a lovely feeling. So those are the things I love. What I hate, all the pernickety stuff, like gosh, with the non-fiction books for adults, there was a lot of things like, picture attribution and forms, and these kind of things. I am a big picture person, and I find the small pernickety things, tax returns, oh my goodness,
Mhm.
tax returns. So yeah, those things I hate, absolutely detest. But yeah, that's comes with the territory.
Yeah. Well, Barbara, we have to call it a night there. You might be relieved. You might get your head down and get yourself recuperating. But it's been
I actually
absolutely
feel better, honestly. I think you've done it. It's a
it's
miracle.
a tonic. Having a good chat. That's what we couldn't have started the Blethers with the Scriever with a better chat. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank
Folks, keep
you.
your eyes peeled for hopefully manage one of these a month now for the rest of the year. There's
Go
so
for
many
it.
amazing folk to chat to. I won't mention names because I don't want to put anyone under undue pressure, but there's various writers who have generously said they'd like to blether too, so that would be great. But once again, folks, can we just put our hands together silently for the
Thank you.
marvelous Barbara Henderson. Very best of luck with the Wallace book and with the forthcoming project that is grabbing your attention right now, and we will be
Thank
hearing a
you.
lot more of you in the future, I have no doubt.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice, and what a lovely, cheery, friendly, smiley audience you are. I have decided I will see if I can drop in for the other chats, because this is really fun. Thank you so much.
Fabulous. Please do. All
Brilliant.
right. Take care,
Bye,
folks. Night night.
bye,
See you
guys.
again.
Have a good night.